Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harrison. Each week, along with some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos and friends, we review films either current or classic on the show, all with a lovable queer bear twist. We are excited to bring not one, but two films to you this week. We're going to be reviewing both Haunted Mansion, the newest Haunted Mansion remake thing from Disney, as well as a film that we were all abuzz about during South by Southwest Film. Talk to Me, which has become available for audiences wide around the world to see. Lots to talk about. We're going to dive in very quickly. But before we do, let me introduce you to my wonderful co hosts who I'm so happy these guys are here. I love doing this with them every week. Jim Pugliafico, of course, is in the virtual studio. How's it going, sweetheart?
It's going. It's a welcome break from the work week, as I like to mention, and a chance to talk about movies with you folks. So, yeah, glad to be here. Let's get it in, get it
All
on,
right.
whatever. Put it in, whatever.
I put it in. Okay. I mean, I like that idea, certainly. William Melendez is also with us. Welcome, Will. How are you?
Great. And Brad, I let you in.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm excited. This is a spooktacular episode in that, we're going to be hitting a couple of like horror movies or horror themed movies, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Definitely fun. I'm super jazzed. But listen, we got a piece of business we need to take care of before we get into our movie discussions. It actually came to my attention that somebody on this podcast has a birthday today.
What?
Will, happy fucking birthday, man.
Hey, thanks so much. This is a great place to be for celebrating my birthday.
Happy birthday, Will.
I love doing this show. I love movies, and what a great way to celebrate my day with y'all.
There you go. All right. Well, we're glad that you're spending part of your birthday with us. With us. Hopefully, you have some fun celebratory things happening this evening after the show. But glad to have you here. Thanks for making some time for us this week. Got a lot to talk about. Two big movies. Y'all ready to just dive right in?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Right. We are going to start with Haunted Mansion. If you have not yet seen Haunted Mansion, don't worry. We're going to talk about it spoiler free for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll give you a fair warning before we open things up to spoilers. And then, of course, we're going to be talking Talk to Me following Haunted Mansion. So be sure to stick around for that. But all of that said, here we go. Our discussion of Haunted Mansion. All right, Will, kick us off for this one, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about this newest Haunted Mansion movie from Disney, and give us your initial thoughts. What did you think of this one? How did it land? Is it worth seeing in theaters, waiting for streaming on Disney Plus, or skipping entirely?
Sure. So, Haunted Mansion is a adaptation of the ride that's at the Disney parks. We've seen a previous version of this movie, I think 2003, thereabouts. Here is 2023. This new film is directed by Justin Simeon, who did Dear White People and Bad Hair, starring some actually pretty talented people. Lakeith Stanfield in the lead role, with supporting performances by Rosario Dawson, Owen Wilson, Tiffany Haddish. We've got Danny DeVito in here. Just a pretty stacked cast of comedic and dramatic actors here. Plot is you have this single mom who hires this tour guide, this psychic, a priest, and a historian. And they all walk into a bar. Now, she hires all of these different people to help her exorcise this mansion that she's bought recently after she discovers it's inhabited by ghosts. So there's a couple of things working both for and against this movie. I think, first of all, For a film that's made sort of in the Disney churn, Disney apparatus, I think this movie did have more style than I think it had any right to have, which is a good thing for it. I think that part of that comes from, I think, Justin Simeon sort of elevating it beyond what it could have been otherwise. I think there are versions of this that fall a lot more flat. Part of it also is that works so well is there are some dramatic moments that really come out because of Lakeith Stanfield just really giving his all to the material. I think that there is some gravitas and pathos in between everything. I think the couple of things that work against it, I think the biggest thing that works against this film is its release date, honestly. This film is a horror comedy with the accent on the being the comedy. It's, this is a family film, so it's sort of like the Haunted Mansion ride. It's not there to really like scare the shit out of you. It's there to sort of give you the festive flavor of Halloween. And because of that, I think this movie would have landed a lot better if it had an October release. This would have been a very good family flick to watch around that time. Launching here in kind of the late summer, I don't know that it connects quite as well as it could. I do think some of the tonal stuff shifts around a little more than it probably should. I think the comedy, while fine, doesn't always have enough of a runway to do all the stuff that it wants to do. I think once it starts to do some of the spooky stuff with some of the classic characters from the ride, it maybe doesn't have enough time to really do anything with them, so that you end up with the third act that feels a little bloated as a result. Ultimately, I think that, you asked the question before, do I see this in theater? Do I see this on Disney Plus? I think where this one fits is this would be a fun one to watch around Halloween at home with your family, just sort of like the movie that you watch while while trick-or-treaters are coming to and from the door, and you've ordered a bunch of pizza, and maybe you're going to get up a few times and miss a scene here or there, but you're still at least getting some of that spooky vibes. I mean, Hocus Pocus is another one along those same vibes. This is where that movie would really shine, but I don't know if this is like a rush out and see it in the middle of August type movie.
All right. Well, that is fair. Thank you so much for those initial thoughts. Colton is in the live chat. Hey, Colton. Colton says, I thought it was good. And, definitely good to hear from folks. If you are watching live, let us know, like Colton, what you thought of the film. And if you're listening through digital tape delay, just comment on the video or the Twitter post or Facebook or whatever. Let us know what you felt. We'd love to have you be part of that discussion. But Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you thought of this film? How did it land for you?
Sure. Colton's setting me up right here. Like, this is a tough act to follow. I know, and I've seen a lot of people on Facebook this week who went and saw this movie and thought it was really good. I saw one person that I know said it was, amazing. But yeah, and there were a lot of things there were some things about this movie that I did like. But in general, it just didn't, it never really got off the ground for me. I mean, we've seen, before we see movies, sometimes I'm probably a pretty big trailer watcher. So I watched the trailers. We saw the trailer for this one several times in the theaters, and I'm like, oh God, I'm really kind of dreading when this movie comes out, because the trailer just did not make it look very good at all for me now. And I also saw the trailer for Barbie movies, which I said the same thing. I said, you know what? This trailer for Barbie doesn't make this movie look really good. It just goes to show you, like, you can see a trailer that just doesn't resonate with you, and the movie could be fantastic, or the movie could be not so great, right? And that's, I don't know what that is, but it's just a matter of whether that 2 minutes or a minute and a half of stuff that they give you in the trailer is going to hit with you or not. And I'll just say that, this movie just didn't really hold much for me. I love Lakeith Stanfield. I wanted to see him do good. I think he does the best job he can do. I actually think he's half miscast in this movie. I think he's great at, Will, you mentioned it. He's great at the stuff that has emotional weight to it, like more dramatic, serious stuff about this stuff in here about relationships, about loss and grief. Right? That's the stuff in this movie that I wish we had pursued a little bit more. But again, that really doesn't have a firm place in a family entertainment comedy slash light horror film, right? To shove those emotional things, which I really liked, and to try to put that in this movie, I could see why that didn't feel as fleshed out for me, because I don't think the producers really had much interest in, or had enough interest in that, versus like trying to make the comedy work, or trying to make the horror work, or trying to make the, I don't know what to call it, nostalgia work, or the lore of the haunted house. Lore, Lore, of the haunted house, right? There's a lot of folks out there that love the Disney stuff. They love the haunted house. They know every freaking noise and saying and piece of music that's on that ride. And you can bet that they're looking for this movie to deliver on kind of giving homage to that lore for the ride. And this movie probably does that very well. It just didn't tickle me in the way it might tickle some other people. So for me, this is not a movie that I can recommend. Because I don't, like I said, I don't think really any of the comedy worked for me. Some of the emotional stuff worked thanks to Lakeith Stanfield and some of the, and Rosario Dawson, and there's a young actor in here who does, I thought, a really good job given what he has to do. But yeah, it just didn't work overall for me. So for me, it's a no recommend.
All right. We've got a recommend at Halloween while trick-or-treaters come to your door, and we've got a don't recommend at all. I guess it's up to me to maybe split decision this a little bit. I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle between the two of you, and you know me, that's always a place I love to be. I definitely identify, Will, with some of the fun things that you called out, sort of the atmosphere of the house, and some of the cool visual things with the ghosts, and there was some neat sound editing where, like, bumps in the night are happening over your left shoulder and then over your right shoulder, and then somehow it's coming from in front of you, and definitely some neat stylistic things with this.
We lost Brad, so we're gonna
again. Here we go again.
We're gonna pause there and remember neat stylistic things.
I think he's entered. He was talking about those stylistic things, and I think
Brad,
he's entered the ghost world again.
Here we go again.
Brad, we lost you right at it had some neat stylistic things, and they cut right there.
Yep.
If that helps.
Okay. All right. It had some neat stylistic things going on for it. Some really cool visuals in terms of like ghosty effects and like twisting corridors. That was in the trailer, so I don't think that's a spoiler. But I think, Jim, some of the things that you were talking about, I resonate with a lot too. Lakeith Stanfield was good here, but I think he was largely wasted. Dude's got some acting chops on him, and the emotional resonance stuff, chef's kiss. I loved it. I wanted more of that. But during kind of the wild, zany, crazy ghost adventure stuff, not quite so much. Rosario Dawson, whom I love, I'm so excited for the Ahsoka series that's coming. Speaking of Disney Plus, and while I liked her here, I felt like she was kind of wasted too, and it was really unfortunate because I think there were some, I don't know, there were some additional opportunities they could have capitalized on. The problem is, when you have an ensemble cast, you're trying to split the time among several people, and we got a lot of Owen Wilson. Oh God, did we get too much Owen Wilson? Danny DeVito. Listen, I'm a fan of twins, but like, no. I'm sorry, not so much for me here. But Jamie Lee Curtis was fun to see show up, but again, nothing I don't know, crazy, out of this world, like, hard hitting or anything. I think the key is, though, like, remembering what this movie is trying to be. It's not trying to be
Right.
a super serious, emotional thing. It's I think it's also not trying to be like,
Oh, he's going to be really happy when he comes back this time.
There's a
Well,
ghost in the
he
machine.
says you got to remember what this movie's trying to be. That's where he left out. There is a ghost in our machine. Hopefully he comes back and to give his to finish his non-spoilery thoughts on his middle of the road non-spoilery thoughts on Haunted Mansion. Hey,
Brad, welcome back.
hi Barbie.
I can.
Worked last week.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know that it
you
even
left
matters
off
what I was talking about.
You left off at how it's trying to do a lot of things.
Yeah, so it's trying to be multiple things, but it's not trying to be the end all be all of those multiple things, whether that's an emotionally resonant movie or a super creepy scary horror movie. It's sort of trying to straddle both. I don't feel like it does either particularly well. I wish it would have picked a lane and stayed in it, but ultimately at the end of the day, this is a movie about a fucking ride at Disney World. So, take that for what you will. This is a recommend for me. Again, I agree that maybe if this had come out around Halloween and we were feeling some of those like autumn Halloweeny vibes, that might be a little more fitting with this. But honestly, if you're looking for something to go see that's not Barbie or Oppenheimer right now, this could be a fun ride for you. So
yeah. I mean, you did hit on one of the big elements for this too, and I think why I'm a little softer on it and was able to kind of let go and enjoy myself with it. It's, I think about what if you're going to make a movie that's an adaptation of the Haunted Mansion, what would I want that to be? What does that need to be? And there's certain things that I want from certain types of films that I don't think really would make sense for it here, right? This has to be first and foremost above everything else, sort of like sit in that 4-pillar family style lane, right? And you kind of hit that point that, and when you're a 4-pillar movie, you're basically hitting all of the different demographics that might watch your film. You do sort of fall in this middle path. You can't be too kiddie because then you'll alienate the parents. You can't be too adult, then the kids won't be exciting. So you have to be kind of in this middle spot. For what it's worth, and I know that this is a drum I've banged on about before, but like I sometimes wonder if you're going to adapt anything, like what are you going to do new or different or add to it? And I think sometimes Disney has a problem with not knowing the answer to that question. And I think here, being able to really tell that like New Orleans ghost story, being able to use it as a story about, and we'll get into this, but like a story about grief and how that impacts things. I do think like there's at least a vision that I could see here. And that I'll give it a lot of credit for. What I won't give it credit for, and I think I said this before, by the time it goes to resolve at the end, it loses its comedic and it loses its gravitas because it's trying to plant itself so solidly in storyland, and that's a problem that a lot of these movies have. You can be funny, you can be action packed, you can be whatever, but then by the finale, you just have to, all right, we're going to put all of that to the side to wrap up our story elements. And I think it loses something as it goes into that finale with just all the shit happening.
Yeah. We've got in the last few weeks, we've gotten 2 movies, 2 big movies based on iconic long-term properties. This one, I would say Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, at Disney World, is an iconic long-term property. I would also say Barbie is an iconic long-term property. So you have these film studios and filmmakers that took these iconic properties and then put a layer of something on top of them, right? Sure, you have the Barbie stuff, you have the Haunted Mansion stuff, you have all the little stuff about Barbie's costumes and blah, 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 all the different dolls and stuff. And in Haunted Mansion, you've got all the characters that are, the ghosts that are in there and the images and special effects and stuff that are in there. But what you lay on top of it, what is to me what makes or breaks that movie. Barbie did it successfully. This movie for me did not. They didn't really do anything with it, and yeah, sure, there's probably stuff in here because I'm not like steeped in the lore of the Haunted Mansion. There's probably stuff in, like Easter eggy stuff that super fans were able to pick out, like, oh, that's the doorknob from the second door
Mm.
on the last corridor of the ride. Isn't that cool? Like, I probably didn't get that stuff, but those fans probably did, and they probably really enjoyed that. But like I said, if there isn't something interesting integrated into this iconic backdrop, it's just it's gonna lose me, and that's what happened.
Mm. I think that's completely fair and makes a lot of sense. I also think it's getting increasingly difficult to talk about some of these things
Mm-hmm.
without dipping into spoiler territory. So, what do you fellas think? Is it time to rip that band-aid off and
Sure.
do it to it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's hop aboard our doom buggies.
Doom buggies going my way.
All right. Spoilers for Haunted Mansion are about to be fair game. If you have not yet seen the film and you want to retain your virginal essence, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to the plot of this film, this is your time to step away for the next 15 minutes or so and then come on back for our Talk to Me review. But all of that said, spoilers totally happening right now. You know how I know? Because there's a ticker at the bottom of the video feed letting you know spoilers, they're happening. Where do you guys want to start?
Oh boy, I don't know where to start.
I think we can start with let's talk about some of the grief stuff because we hit on that it was a theme, but we didn't really talk about how. So we have I think to me some of the most impactful moments of this movie really come with the main character Ben, who is in his backstory. He's like, he's a smart dude who meets this woman who he eventually is engaged to or married to. And she's like does these haunted like walking tours, and she dies. And he has to deal with the sort of stagnation that he's developed in his life since then, and some of the guilt that he feels for whether or not the last moments were meaningful, or whether or not some of his actions maybe even contributed to her death. I thought all of that was really good, especially culminating in a scene that where he just like lets loose the tears and really kind of gives it his all in terms of like sort of finally opening up about what happened when he's sitting around kind of like this bonding scene with the other people in the house. I thought that was an incredibly standout scene because Keith Stanfield just absolutely nailed it. That was some of my favorite stuff, just sort of that emotional through line.
Yeah, well, I agree, and also, in this movie, a lot of the characters have, been struggling with loss, right? Obviously, he lost his, I think it was his wife or fiance. I can't remember if they were married. In a car wreck, and Rosario Dawson lost her husband, right? The boy and the little boy's dad.
Right.
Was also lost, and there was, there's a lot of gravitas in those yes, there's some daddy issues involved there, the old standby, but I thought they were pretty well done in that movie, so there was a little bit there for me to grasp onto. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, that stuff really all worked. Like I said, I didn't think any of the comedy worked. I do want to talk about this movie was pretty heavy in special effects, and I thought the effects looked pretty good. I didn't have any issue at all with how the movie looked. The kind of the atmosphere of the haunted house, like that was portrayed in the movie, I thought that worked really well. And how they portrayed the ghosts. There's a lot of ghost appearances in the film, and spirits, and stuff goes bang in the night and all that stuff. A lot of the scenes that are created in that exist in the haunted house ride are are well portrayed on screen. I thought that was good to see.
Yeah, I liked the effects. I liked the Brad, you mentioned the sound design up front. Like, this movie looked very good, sounded very good.
Mhm.
You know, I maybe the only exception I would say on that was I wasn't as big a fan of just the way, once we finally got to the reveal of the Hatbox Ghost and the
The
way
big
he looked.
bad?
Yeah, the Hatbox Ghost did not look. It looked way better, like when they were holding stuff back, than when we finally got to see it.
Mhm.
And
Cartoony, right? Like a
yeah,
little too cartoony
yeah,
because the rest of them did not really look like that cartoony.
no, they were. We saw just enough. Like, they held back
Yeah.
on showing too much. So, like, there's this other ghost that is actually less scary because he's kind of one of the good ghosts, I guess, or one of the most good. And it's this sea captain who we
Mhm.
mostly just see sort of like a glimpse of in a rear view mirror, like a flash of in a camera,
The
or like
Mariner.
these watery like footsteps, or him like
Yeah.
flipping through the channels. I think that was one of the most. I felt like that one felt like the most like real inhabiting ghost, even though it was mostly through like wet footprints and like a flash. I felt like the Hatbox Ghost that we see more of was the one that felt the more artificial for what it's worth.
Yeah, you're right. He looked artificial, and the plot of this movie, especially as you got further into it, reminded me a lot of an episode of like the Scooby Doo mysteries.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it was totally like the Scooby Doo mysteries, where our main characters are the Scooby Gang, and you got the one big bad, causing all these problems. Yeah, it was a couple times I was reminded of Scooby Doo, which is probably a better mystery.
Like,
All
watch
right,
out for
gang.
the Hatbox Ghost, man.
All right, gang. It's time to solve this mystery. Let's see who the Hatbox Ghost really is.
Right.
It was Disney the whole time.
Right.
Here's something for the spoiler section. We could have also done this in pre-spoilers, just thinking about it. But one thing that I did clock, and whenever I clock something like this, it does take me out of the movie a little bit. There were a lot of brand placements in this movie.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
especially
Burger
things,
King, Dr. Pepper, what else did we have?
Costco was mentioned.
Costco.
and the way that they were mentioned, like, it wasn't like, there were a couple that work a little bit better. Like, there was a kid, like the kid has these action figures, and he uses them to sort of set up around his tent to protect him. And there's like a Black Panther one, and there's a
All
Storm
Disney.
one, all Disney, But you know what? If you are what was this kid? 10 to 12 or so.
He's probably 11 or 12. Yeah.
If you're a 12-year-old kid, is it unrealistic to think that you'd have a Black Panther action figure? No, not at all. That felt pretty real. But the other ones that we just talked about felt very like the Burger King. It was like, oh, I'm gonna eat some Burger King, and it's like these.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the tater tots. No, these are jalapeno poppers. Or I'm gonna write it down on my Costco pad and paper. Like some of the brands were. It's like the script had to go out of its way to include them in there, and again, it took me out every single time.
I'm surprised they didn't say Ore-Ida tater tots.
Yeah.
Speaking of tater tots, I do want to give this movie a little bit of props for the idea of the ghost wink.
Yeah.
That was a super cute and very meaningful thing. The movie basically sets this idea up that when someone, maybe close to you passes away, they find a way to like appear to you or make you feel their presence through these ghost winks, which can be like a thing you see that might be related to them, or like a song you hear or whatever. Like my mom, when she passed, she told me that like every time I see a butterfly, it's her. So now every time I see a butterfly, it's a ghost wink. Like I know it's not really my mom probably coming to see me, but like, it makes me think of her. It's a meaningful thing. And so when the cat named Tater Tot showed up at the end, I actually cried a little bit. And I'm like, I'm crying during a Disney Haunted Mansion remake. What is going on right now? But that was a meaningful thing for me, and I loved the idea of the ghost wing thing sort of being codified as like a thing that happens. You know?
It's a thing, and the way they did it in the film, I thought was pretty impactful, not just because of the reveal, but the fact that we're introduced to this cat very early on, and then the cat is just sort of dropped as a plot element, and it's really easy just to forget that the cat was there. So when they brought it back and then they used that for that little reveal with what the caller said, I thought that was a really impactful way of doing it. Didn't tip its hand too much that that's what they were doing, but it also didn't feel like it came out of left field.
Mm-hmm. Did Will, Brad and I noticed it right away, but I don't know if you noticed it, but was that candle really meant to look like a penis? Like,
oh my God.
I saw this one scene. It's actually in the trailer too.
Well, Keith Stanfield is like walking down the hallway holding a candle. Like one of the ghosts went into the candle, and so the candle had like a little face.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
Totally like a penis with a little face on it, and it even looked more like a penis when the face went away. It was, it was just. Hey, I'm like, they could have done anything with that candle, really.
So I didn't clock that, but it is not weird that you did, because just now I went to my Google search
Go
engine.
to Reddit.
I went to Google and I typed in Haunted Mansion Lakeith Stanfield penis candle. I just threw all the keywords in. The first two articles, Entertainment Weekly, is the Haunted Mansion ghost candle a penis? And then Yahoo News, is the ghost candle in Haunted Mansion shaped like a... And then it cuts off. It's too short.
It's so totally like I didn't read any of those.
And Yahoo agree.
I didn't read any of those. I honestly, like, when I saw the movie, I like laughed. It was my only big laugh of the movie was watching, like, oh my God, they put a penis in this movie.
That's hilarious. I'm gonna look at this Entertainment Weekly.
Did you see a picture? Yeah.
Anyway. One of the 999 happy haunts in Disney's new movie sure looks like a ghostly phallus to us.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what? I'm looking at the still frame, and guys, that's a dick.
That's totally a dick, right?
That's a dick. Like,
this is not the first time Disney has put the dicks in their in their films.
I didn't clock it, but now I can't unsee it.
Yeah, well, it's there.
Yeah, it's there. So,
So look, I'm saying, look, if I don't recommend it's even got like a veiny thing on the side. I don't recommend seeing this movie, but if you do, look for the dick. I'm just saying right now.
It looks like a dick that's sounding with the sparkler.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
If we're talking about dick candles and sparkler sounding rods, I think we've probably tapped the well of Haunted Mansion discussion. But I will give one final chance. Anything else you want to say, dick candles aside?
Also, kudos to Danny DeVito's clear plastic coat in this. It's silly as hell. He just has he's this eccentric historian guy, and a couple of times he's just outside and he's wearing over his little gray suit this like completely clear like trench coat thing. They never talk about it. They never explain it, but it like was one of those things where the costume designer told me so much about that character just through that one choice. So I thought that was a good pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. There are a few things to tickle our funny bones in this film. They might not be intentional, but
but they still tickle them, right? And,
yes,
and
they're
that's
ticklers,
the key,
all right.
Oh boy. All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and switch things up and talk about another film. We always say on the show that horror movies don't get enough love. So, we figured we'd do two this week. Of course, Haunted Mansion, which we just finished. But now our second film of episode e481 is a little film we saw at South by Southwest Film called Talk to Me. Jim,
Yeah.
Will, are you ready to talk to me about Talk to Me?
Talk to me.
I'll let you in.
All right. As we always do, we're going to talk about the film spoiler free for about 10 minutes before we open things up to spoilers. So if you haven't seen Talk to Me yet, please stick around. This is actually a film you may want to hear about. It is available to see right now, especially if you're looking for something to see as summer movies are drying up. This could be one to put on your radar. So hang around, listen to our initial thoughts. But here we go. Our discussion of Talk to Me. All right, Jim, do us a favor and set this one up. What is Talk to Me? Maybe talk a little bit about your experience seeing this at South by, and should people check this out in theaters, wait for streaming, skip it? Where do you come down?
Yeah, this is one we really liked. I think we all really liked this one at South by Southwest this year. Kind of a surprise for us. Which is interesting because South by Southwest isn't necessarily known for their like fresh horror, I guess, films. That's felt maybe more like a Fantastic Fest kind of movie, but we can argue that another time. But this one is a small. I guess it's a smaller film, but meaning that you might not know anybody associated with this film when we go down the cast list, or you might not. This is by writer director Danny Philippou and his I think his brother, right, Michael Philippou. I think they're brothers. These two filmmakers who directed this. I'll read the IMDb summary so as not to give much away till we get into spoilers. When a group of young friends discover how to conjure spirits using a dismembered, embalmed head. Excuse me. God. I'm going to start over because I just choked. Clear my throat. All right, here we go. When a group of young friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand, they become hooked on the new thrill until one of them goes too far and unleashes terrifying supernatural forces. In other words, things get out of hand. Anyway, this one is stars. It's an A24 film that you can find right now in theaters. If you want to see something really disturbing, really frightening, thrilling, scary, if you want, this is the one I would recommend. This is another movie that may have benefited from being released a little bit later, closer to Halloween. I think it's interesting that both these movies were released so early because they both would be better suited for Halloween movie, especially this one. This one has the ability to really like disturb viewers, I would say. It did me. I really loved it. It feels fresh in a way, like this. Yeah, like seance. It's not really a seance, but it's kind of a twist on the seance where they're conjuring spirits from beyond to try to get in touch with them for various reasons, and all hell breaks loose. It's not cool for a lot of these people. So I can't strongly recommend enough that people go see Talk to Me. If you like horror thrillers, suspense horror thrillers, this is the one you should be seeing in theaters right now. It's called Talk to Me.
All right. Huge recommend from Jim. Thank you for laying your thoughts out for us, babe.
Sure.
Will, how about for you? Did this one land as well, or did it leave you haunting and wanting?
Yeah. I'm going to stay on the hype train for this one. We came out of South by Southwest very much loving this one. This is the type of movie that, you guys, I think by now know kind of what type of movies really like fall in my right in my like perfect little wheelhouse, and this one hits right in the middle of that. I love horror movies. I love horror movies that are either metaphors or that are descriptions of some sort of like thing that like gets to the core of what it is to be human, or what it is to feel loss, or what it is to feel blah 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 blah, whatever specific thing. This does all of that, but it also does so in the form of a pretty unique hook. Like, I think we've seen a lot of like haunting stories and possession stories or whatever type of stories over the course of the different years, but this one is really limited around a very specific way of summoning these apparitions, these hauntings, these whatever. And it's through this kind of weird little embalmed hand. And I love that because it creates a sense of rules right away. You kind of know what happens in this movie, how it's happening. Nothing feels like a cheat. Nothing feels like it's kind of done just for the sake of story, even though that's a perfectly valid way to write a story, because you're already hooked into kind of the rules of this universe. I think the actors all do a really good job with this one. I think the one thing that could hurt this film overall is expectations, right? There's a lot of like, oh, this is the scariest movie since Hereditary, and I think that puts a really high specific bar, because that movie I remember very specifically making a lot of people lose a lot of sleep. So this puts you like, to enjoy this movie, it has to be as scary as one of the scariest movies of the last decade. Put all that out of your mind. You don't have to worry about how this compares or ranks with other things. This is a dark horror movie that has enough going on to keep you moving, but it's not just like full of fake jump scares for the sake of them. You'll enjoy this movie. You'll have a really, really good time with it, but just don't measure your success on it about as to like, well, if it's not the scariest thing I've ever seen, it must not be good. No, it's a really solid movie. Highly recommended.
All right, another really big recommend for this film. As for me, well, fuck it. I'm gonna keep hyping this movie up too, because this movie is the goods. It's one of those things where, like, I don't know. I think horror movies work best for me when they have certain elements of realism to them, enough so that like I can kind of, I don't know, latch onto the realism a little, and that sort of catapults me into like the supernatural stuff maybe affecting me more. For me, what it was about this movie was utilizing like social media with an embalmed hand that can summon spirits. And it's in the trailer, not a spoiler, a bunch of teenagers getting together, dicking around with otherworldly forces because it's fun to like film and put on YouTube. Like, that sounds like a fucking recipe for disaster. And you know what? It was a fucking recipe for disaster in all the right and best ways. Some great performances here. I really appreciated the fact that we got some really heavy emotional resonance stuff. In our Haunted Mansion review, we were talking a little bit about trying to blend some of the like horror stuff with also emotional stuff, and it didn't work as well as it could have. This movie did it incredibly well. There's an emotional through line through the whole thing that just bangs from start to fucking finish. Really, really well done. I also appreciated that this movie relies a lot on some practical effects as opposed to just a CGI slog fest. Part of that is probably because this is a much smaller budgeted film than something like Haunted Mansion. And this isn't a competition. I keep comparing the two. It's really not. But it does kind of highlight for me that, man, you get some scrappy filmmakers and writers and some good actors and actresses who may not necessarily be the most well known, but like they've got their chops, mix it all together, in a bowl and throw it in a embalmed hand, and it all works. It's fantastic. So absolutely, I think this is one worth seeing, especially if you really enjoy horror films. See this in a theater if you can, preferably on like a Friday night or something when a bunch of people are there. There's some really cool things that happened with sound with this. For instance, when they use the hand to summon a spirit, like some of the like whooshing effects and like whispering and things like that coming from around you. It's kind of transcendent in a way. So I'm really excited about this movie. It's really good. I will say though that the middle does kind of drag a little bit. I feel like we need to point out a criticism, and for me, that's it. Some of the things do kind of drag on, and it's kind of like, all right, let's get to the next thing that's going to happen here. But honestly, those are minor quibbles in a really good film. So definitely go see this one.
So
Yeah, it's. Oh, sorry. Well, go ahead.
I was also going to say, like, the other thing to keep in mind with this movie is R-rated movies have sort of like a very, very broad target, right? You know, like you can be an R-rated movie because you've just said the word fuck a couple too many times, or you can be an R-rated movie because you've shown a lot of nudity or a lot of violence, and it can be a little bit, it can be a lot bit. It just kind of hits certain thresholds. But there are some R-rated movies that you can take your kids to go see with you, you know, and that's your choice as a parent. I will say on this one, some of the more violent scenes are specifically disturbing. So I would just want to caution against that. We can talk about what those are here in a moment, but there are some scenes here that will absolutely make you like squirm in your seat. And so just caution. It's incredibly well done. It's there for a reason. It doesn't feel gratuitous for the sake of gratuitous. It's incredibly effective, but just, you know, if your kid's like I love horror movies kid, like I was, you know, hell, maybe still take them. I don't know. I turned out okay.
You're right, Will. There are some really disturbing kind of bodily harm kind of scenes, I'll just say, in this film that still stick with me today. And I saw this movie like 5 months ago, or whatever it is, and it's still in my mind, like that scene or scenes, which we'll probably talk about in spoilers, just still kind of haunt me today. You know, I can it's kind of burned into my mind. It's funny though, like, and I would never put this film in the category, a classic horror category like Friday the 13th or Halloween or anything like that, right? From some masters of horror that we've got and we've talked about on the show before. But it's got a lot of the same elements. Like it's got a group of friends, teens, right? It's got a set of rules that if the rules are broken, like, you know, like bad things are going to happen. And that's what happens in this movie. And we'll talk about those a little bit more in spoilers. Like, I think some of them might be in the trailer as far as what there's a set of rules around the hand and summoning spirits with the hand, and there's certain limits to what you can do, and you can't cross certain lines. And guess what? We got a bunch of fucking around teenagers doing this shit. What are they gonna do? They're gonna try to fucking bend the rules, and you know,
Yeah,
things go crazy.
and it's not just the fuck around teenagers of it all, although you know there's certainly some of that too. But there's some character emotion that goes into why some of the characters make the decisions they make too.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's what makes it incredibly compelling. We should, I know this is the point where we normally transition. I can't speak anymore about this one without us moving spoilers.
Yeah, that was going to be my next thing. Was I think we really need to open it up. So sounds like you're on board. Well, Jim, are you good to go for spoilers?
I am. Just before we jump in, I'm just going to say the one, and again, probably didn't know any of the actors in this film before, but the main actor here is Sophie Wilde. I think that's her name. She plays a character called Mia. She's the one whose performance stuck with me the most in this film.
I absolutely agree, and I can't wait to talk about some of the reasons why. So, spoilers for Talk to Me are about to start. If you haven't seen the movie yet, you should go see it. All of us agree. This is a really good one. So don't sleep on this one. Go see it while it's in theaters if you can, if that's safe for you. Otherwise, see this as soon as you can on streaming. But we're going to go ahead and open things up to spoilers. If you want to stick around anyway, that's on you. You're certainly able to make that choice for yourself. But spoilers for Talk to Me are happening now. Jim, why don't you kick us off a little bit? What was it about Sophie Wilde's performance or the Mia character that you found so compelling?
Yeah, so her character had lost her mother as well, right? And I think fairly recently, under not so
Like
clear,
2 years.
Yeah.
like and not so clear um, circumstances, or and their relationship was a strong one, but there was a lot of regret. There's a lot of course, loss and grief, and she's using the hand to try to connect with her mother in this film. And I just thought, and there's a lot of emotion that goes with that. And I thought the way she portrayed that was really, both the way it was written and the way it was performed was really well done in all those scenes. Especially like the ending there is kind of a twist ending in this film also, which I think is really cool. Even though we're in spoilers, I don't know, maybe I'll let one of you guys spoil it, but it seems like one I kind of would want to keep in my pocket. Just other than to say there is a pretty effective, a lot of twist endings can come across as like super corny or manipulative or whatever, but this one um, seemed really well earned, and it involves the Mia character. So yeah, I think that was really why I liked her performance mostly.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the things that worked so well thematically for me on this is the type of movie in other movies where the young people are punished for just because they're young people, right? Like they because they are young and exist, and we like to make fun of young people, we're going to kill them off one by one or what have you. And that's what this movie is at all interested in. This movie is instead interested in when you are so overwhelmed by grief that you can't let it go, what happens when you just sort of keep wrapping yourself into the darkness instead of like trying to find a way out of it? Of course, through a ghostly possession metaphor and all sorts of stuff like that. But that's what this character of Mia here, the reason the plot kicks off and gets, goes south pretty quickly isn't necessarily because the kids are playing with the hand. They're obviously fucking around with ghosts and they shouldn't do that. But it's because she keeps pushing the limits of how long she's going to want to be under the hand's thrall so that she can try to see what's on the other side, because she wants to see her mom.
More time with her mother.
Yeah. And her mother passed away to suicide recently, right? And that's incredibly hard for any young person to have to deal with, obviously, right?
There's a lot of unsaid stuff, right? That the character needs to explore to kind of deal with their emotions.
Yeah, so even when she's doing like stuff that we can watch as the audience and go like, no, stop doing that, no, like you also understand why the character is doing that. And I think that makes for effective horror for me. Creating situations of people doing things that are against their own best interests, but are still fully within their character.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I was sort of alluding to in the pre-spoiler section, was like some of the elements of realism making for effective jumping off points into the supernatural stuff. Jim, you mentioned the rules, and there's this rule that, like, you can only have so long with a spirit from the hand possessing.
I think it's like
somebody.
90 seconds before you have to. I forget what it is. You have to.
Yeah, I saw it 6 months ago.
You have to blow out a candle or something.
Right.
You have to blow out another, which does not look like a dick, by the way.
But because of the character's own grief and maybe wanting to talk to loved ones who have passed on, like added on to like their age and drinking and smoking pot and maybe not making the best decisions, they push past that time. They don't follow the rules exactly. They forget to blow out the candle when shit goes crazy. And those were the points of realism for me that like made all of the things that happened as a result of this kind of makes sense to me. It's not just that like a poltergeist showed up and started throwing things around. You know, kids were dumb and did things that real kids would probably do, and supernatural shit happened as a result. It worked for me.
The thing that I would say was most uncomfortable, and I mentioned this up in the pre-spoiler section, is there's a scene where one of the, basically like the younger brother character, who's more of like early teenager, maybe tween, you know, he's maybe like 14 if the other characters are like 17 or whatever the movie version of that is, right? Where he just gets absolutely through a possession, just starts like beating the shit out of himself, and he's just really like hammering his head against things and breaking things, and it is a hard watch. It is a hard watch.
Yeah.
It's scary, it's intense, it's done the way it's supposed to for the film, but again, it was a lot. So again, disclaimer around all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I do wish, if there's one thing that I'd really want to improve about this movie, besides some of the pacing, it would be that the film had gone more in depth on the lore of the hand itself.
Right.
Where did it come from? Who made it? How did it get these supernatural powers? We saw the hand pass on to another group of people at the end of the film, and I'm like, ooh, I hope that's Talk to Me Too. I'm going to watch that movie. But I wanted to know more about how all of this sort of originated. Did either of you feel any of that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some curiosity about it, and the movie glosses it over because none of the kids apparently know the origins of this hand. There's some guessing that goes on, like, oh, I heard it came from some guy who was a medium who could talk to, like they have their own little anecdotes about where it possibly came, but there's no definitive word. And I think that's more of a feature, right? Not a bug. It's just a question of whether that feature worked for you to not, you know what I mean? To not have that in there. But I heard it's coming in the sequel called Talk to Me Too, The Other Hand.
Oh, yeah. Look who's
The
talking
stranger
to me too.
hand?
Look who's talking to me too. Yeah, it's
On the other hand.
Yeah. I think one of the things that kind of worked in that, maybe as a feature for me, is just because I think the alternative, there's a version of this movie where they do explain more about the hand, and if they were to do it anywhere, it would be in that second act. And if they were to do it anyway, it would be through all of the characters sitting around a library looking through books. And you know that scene where they see like it sees here that this is so like, unless there was a more compelling way to do it than that, I'm glad they didn't do it. If there was a great way to do it, then yeah.
We don't use libraries anymore. We don't use encyclopedias. We browse the internet. We need to see someone like clicking a mouse, scrolling up and down a web page, and dealing out exposition. Yeah.
Okay.
And all their research eventually leads them to this retired undertaker played by David Dastmalchian, who actually killed a person who was a psychic because he didn't like what he told him.
It says here on Wikipedia that the hand belongs to a Sumerian ghost who is a vengeance demon, and also I should pay $3 because Wikipedia relies on the support of people like me.
Oh God! Now I'm picturing someone's holding the hand and saying, "Talk to me," and like the spirit that inhabits the body says, "Thank God, we've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty."
I can see there being like a viral trend of dancing with the hand on TikTok. So this movie has already made back, it's all a matter of scale, right? This movie opened to like 10 million, was made for 4.5, so it's made back twice what it's done, right? Which is great. I love the backstory to this film. This is a movie where these two guys worked like camera and electrical crew on the Babadook, which is also an Australian film. and one of the producers for that. And they'd also been doing some short stuff. They got to knowing her, and she did all, set all of this up. Interesting fact, both the Babadook and this movie, Talk to Me. Do you know where they are predominantly filmed and set?
Not in Australia.
In Adelaide.
Oh,
which is the name of my dog, so that's why I know that.
Yes. Will's Pets for the win. Yes.
All right, fellas. Any final thoughts on Talk to Me before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, we know we're really like still kind of early before Halloween, but there are at least, well, all right, there are at least 2 decent horror movies out right now that you can see, I think. I saw The Boogeyman earlier this year, which I plugged on the show, which I really liked. That's a pretty solid adaptation of Stephen King, by the way, if you haven't seen it. Speaking of David Dastmalchian. And then this film, Talk to Me. And also there's an Insidious movie out there that I'm hearing, I haven't seen, but I'm hearing pretty good things about. So if you want your early fix of horror films in the lead up to Halloween, you've got at least 2 or 3 movies to pick from to go see there. And that's pretty cool.
And the nice thing about that too is that if you start kind of cycling through those, every couple of weeks or what have you, by the time you've run through those, end of September is Saw 10, and then in October itself, you've got a new Exorcist movie and Five Nights at Freddy's. So you've got a lot of horror movies coming up, and that's like the more like maybe not tentpole stuff, but the more widely released stuff. That's not counting like other horror films that might be popping up on Shudder or kind of like squeaking their way through there. The new Scorsese movie. And so there's a lot of good stuff coming out soon. So, gosh, man, movies are fun. I just love movies.
I think the point is go see great horror movies.
Yeah, go see this one. It's in theaters now, or, I mean, if you just can't make it out to the movie theaters, or just that's not something you really want to do right now, look for this movie, because I'm sure it's going to be probably by the time Halloween rolls around, this may be streaming somewhere.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, as usual, great conversation, fellas. Always love hearing your thoughts, especially because it's like we see these movies, and the first thing I want to do is talk to you both about them. But if we did that, then we wouldn't have anything to talk about on the show. So I end up being in suspense for several days, and it's a very big cathartic release to hear what you think and talk it all through. Thank you so much, as always, Jim, Will, for joining us and being part of the MBP magic. Thank you as well to those who joined us listening live or experiencing the show through digital tape delay on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. We appreciate your support of the show year after year after year. We're staring down the barrel of 500 shows. It's coming. It's going to happen. And I'm excited to hit that milestone with you all. But listen, we have a jam-packed podcast schedule the next couple weeks. We've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming up next week. The week after is going to be the Meg 2. And then after that, well, we'll figure it out. But a lot of good stuff coming. Make sure to go see those movies if you can, if it's safe for you. And then come on back, tune in for our reviews. If you want to chat with us between now and those reviews, however, let's talk a little bit about how folks can interface with us online. Jim, where can people talk to you?
They can find me, first of all, on that movie review and rating platform called Letterboxd. If you haven't, if you haven't checked out Letterboxd, where have you been hiding if you're a film fan, right? Because if you're a movie fan, check it out. All the movies are on there. Tons of reviews to read through. Cool stuff. You find me on there at JJP Out West. I picked up a new friend on there today. Yay! And then also find me, still over on Twitter, or is it X now? I don't know. My phone still shows me the blue bird, so I'm gonna call it Twitter.
You gotta update. It's
I gotta
X.
up. Shit. I'm afraid. Like I don't want to. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to. But I'm on there. Also at JJP Out West, and then I'm also on Facebook under my name Jim Puliafco, which you see right here.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much. Will, how about you?
Well, I've stopped putting my X details in our little Chiron at the bottom because,
Yeah.
well, I'm still there just to kind of wrap up connecting with some people and stuff like those lines. Yeah, it's just that
Pretty
app
much
is not
over.
long for me, right? But you can find me a few different places. Right now, I'm on Blue Sky right now. There's not a lot of people on there yet, but it's pretty cool. So if you happen to get over there, I'm at the Movie Bear there. Same thing I am on TikTok. You can find me looking for William Lindis or the Movie Bear. I updated my title just to sort of like streamline some things over on Letterboxd. And I'm also on Facebook. That's the place where I'll communicate with you the most. Because I don't know, because I'm an elder millennial. So just look for Facebook, look for William Lindis. I'm on there. Send me a message so I know who you are.
All right. Excellent. Will, I noticed that you did not rate Haunted Mansion on Letterboxd.
He's
Oh, it's-
mulling it over.
Oh, it's coming. I sometimes wait to put the score in until right after we do this. Because I do all of mine. So weird thing about Letterboxd for me, instead of doing them in real time, I let a few of them save up and then I just do like a little binge. So I sit down and do them all at once. So
Interesting. Okay. All right. Cool. Folks, you can find me on Facebook. Just look for Brad Harris. I'm the one who likely has bear/chub/chaser friends in common with you. Shoot me a message first, though, so I can make sure you're not a bot. Please and thank you. You can also find me on Letterboxd, where I have rated every single thing I have seen so far this year. I'm super proud of myself. If I had the talk to me hand, I'd use it to pat myself on the back. But look for me there at iBradPro, and definitely be sure to tune in next week for our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem review. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing this movie with Jim because I know it might surprise him. It's probably going to be the best movie of the whole year for you, Jim. You're going to rate it a 5 and give it a heart
I
symbol.
think that
I just know
before I see every movie.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. We'll see y'all next week. Goodbye.
bye.
Bye-bye.